So I'm going to make a statement, and I think your answer is going to be yes, but because it leads to my next question. So you agree that our foreign assistance should reflect two things. Number one is our interest, first and foremost, but also our values, right?
Yes, Senator.
So how do we do that? What are your ideas about how we actually do that in our foreign aid and all our other programs? How do we tie both our interests and our values in our foreign assistance programs?
Thank you, Senator, for raising that question. It is a balance that we have to strike. We must ensure that our assistance is directed to those places where we have a national security or a vital national interest. And then we need to assess when we have concerns about particular activities or statements of a country, what we're doing with our assistance. Are we directing it to civil society groups? Are we promoting democracy? What are we really doing with that? And I think that's an important tenet and principle that we need to work through.
You mentioned it as a balance. I would argue, and you probably would agree too, that oftentimes they are actually not mutually exclusive. That in essence, oftentimes our interests are our values, and whether it's the issues of modern-day slavery or religious liberties or any other human rights causes. So I think that's important. I mean, do we have, or do you have an example that we can look at and say this is a place where we have found the right balance, where we've been able to use foreign assistance and foreign assistance programs and engagement as an opportunity to, in essence, do both, to further our interests and our values simultaneously?
Senator, you're right. They're certainly not mutually exclusive. And I think that there are many places around the world where we've been able to utilize our assistance to promote our values and address issues that we have concerns about. I'd be happy to follow up with you and go through some of those. It is important that we understand what we're trying to achieve with our assistance and what outcomes we're looking for. And I think that's an important thing to bring into the equation.
Now, I also wanted to point out, I introduced a bill along with Senator Cardin and Representatives Poe and Connolly in the House. It's Senate Bill 1271. What it's designed to do is to improve monitoring and evaluation of U.S. Foreign assistance programs, including security sector assistance. So I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but I would encourage you to look at it and see how we can gain some traction on that idea, because we live in a time where, so if you do these polls, everybody wants to balance the budget, but the only thing they're in favor of doing is cutting foreign aid, which of course you can't balance our budget by doing that. It's just not enough money, and quite frankly it would be counterproductive. So I do think we have to increasingly be able to justify to the American people why at a time when we have such extraordinary challenges domestically, we are still engaged globally. And part of being able to make that argument are having programs that have clear measurable results, clear goals, and also, obviously, any instances where that money is being misspent or unwisely spent undermine that argument. So this is a real challenge that we face moving forward. I think it's critically important, and I would urge you and others to get behind the idea that we need to do that as not just the right thing to do in terms of responsible stewards of the public tax dollar, but also as a way to ensure the long-term viability of our international engagement. And I think that's important. And an editorial note I would make is, increasingly, unfortunately, over the last 10 years, so much of our foreign policy has been viewed in the lens of military engagement, as if that's the only tool in our toolbox, when in fact, our most powerful tool is proactively engaging around the world with assistance programs that further our values and our interests and prevent these situations from arising and helping our allies transition to more sustainable pathways. My last question is, in January of this year, the State Department's International Security Advisory Board recommended, this is a quote, implement a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation process for its security capacity building programs, measuring effectiveness against defined goals in terms of basic national objectives, not just value for money or inputs provided. In April, the President issued a policy directive pledging to inform policy with rigorous analysis, assessments, and evaluations. Can you provide to us any sort of explanation about what measures have been taken thus far to further that rigorous, to implement rigorous analysis, assessment, et cetera, as it relates to security sector assistance?
Senator, thank you very much for raising these issues. I have a great deal of interest in enhancing the capacity of the department to use our analysis and evaluations to inform our budgeting, to inform our policy. I would really like to work with you on the legislation that you've introduced, if I'm confirmed. When I was working at the Office of Management and Budget, I was working as part of a team to ensure we were doing more data and analysis across the entire federal government to inform our budgeting. And I think it's a very important tenet of the work that we can do together. It's also, as you point out, incredibly important in justifying the investment. 1% of the federal budget is in our foreign affairs space. Secretary Kerry believes that we need to make the case for this investment, and I think these tools are important for us to do it. It's also important for us to understand what programs aren't working and why. So I'm very supportive of that. I'd be happy to follow up with you, Senator, on the specific question you've raised about the security assistance programs. I think that there have been some good steps taken, but we can follow up with some more detail on that.
And I actually did have one more, and I think it'll save us some paper here. The 2010 Quadrennial Diplomacy and Development Review process acknowledged that the State Department has a shortage of key skills necessary for modern-day diplomacy. If you could just briefly describe what that gap is and what you view as, what steps we can take to develop the professional skills of our foreign affairs, of our foreign service officers.
Thank you. I think that there are a set of skills that we really need to hone in on to align what our policy objectives are today with the skills and training that our foreign service officers get. I mentioned in my testimony our economic impact, our economic diplomacy. We don't necessarily right now train our economic officers in the Foreign Service in how to engage with U.S. business and with the folks that they deal with overseas at their posts about how to make those connections. That's clearly an area that we need to do more and better in. There's also some discussion around our language training and some skills like that, but I would like to, and I've talked with the Secretary about this, really evaluate where our gaps are in training and look for ways to fill those. And I think that one of the most obvious places to begin that is with the economic development work. Thank you.